Okay, this is doctorarjaybe, and today is a video on a subject that I found on Quora. Somebody was asking about getting lightheaded when they stood up, and this is something that we call postural hypotension. Somebody will be sitting in a position for a long period of time. They'll stand up and they'll feel lightheaded. The usual cause for this is a change in blood pressure from sitting to standing. Now, when I was a young kid, I used to have this all the time when I was in high school. I was close to 6 feet, but only weighed about 150 pounds. So I was kind of underweight at that time. And because of that, my blood pressure tended to be on the low side. And sitting for a period of time in class, we sit for like close to an hour when we have a class in high school. The blood pressure would just kind of settle down. And then when I tried to stand up, I would get dizzy. I tell the story of that because I was a young male high school student. I didn't want to show any weakness. I didn't want anybody to know that I was ready to pass out. So I just kind of hid the fact that I was, close to passing out. Also, I used to get a blackout spell, so my vision would go dark. So I really couldn't see anything. So I was going to the front of the room with my hands, touching the desks so I could tell where I was. And I was hoping that the guy in front of me didn't stop so that I'd bump into him. Sometimes it would be so bad with the blood pressure that my legs would start shaking. Really, I was very close to passing out. But, again, I'm a young male high school student. I didn't want anybody to know that I was weak, so I just hid the fact that I was close to passing out. Usually, the reason for this condition is something that causes your blood pressure to be on the low side. So a common reason for this will be somebody who, let's just say, does a long endurance race, and they've been sweating quite a bit, and maybe they haven't taken enough fluids, so they're dehydrated, they because of the dehydration, their blood pressure is on the low side. When they try to stand up, because their blood pressure is so low, their brain doesn't receive enough of the blood, and they get dizzy, and they can even sometimes pass out. So this will sometimes occur when people are on the football field. They're working out on the football field. It's a hot day. They're not taking enough fluids. Let's say they're alignment and they're all bent over. They stand up, pass out. Now everybody is rushing them, to get cool them off, give them some fluids, etc., because they realize that this was somebody who had dehydration issues. Another cause for this, a fairly common one, is blood pressure medication. Some blood pressure medications can be quite strong, and if the blood pressure goes a little bit on the low side, sometimes that's enough to cause this dizzy spell. As a matter of fact, there's one class of blood pressure drugs which are famous for this. The medications are called the alpha blockers, because they can be on the strong side, they're usually recommended to take right before you go to bed. So these medications, especially some of the real strong ones, can lower the blood pressure suddenly after taking the dose. Eventually it goes back up again, but after the dose, the blood pressure can go down a bit low, and if you're standing up at that time, you can pass out. So they usually tell the people, take the medication right before you go to bed so that you're lying down when the medication hits the system. The other reason that that commonly people will have this is somebody who's been dieting. When you diet, one of the things that you're going to be burning is carbohydrates. And carbohydrates in the body are stored as a gel called glycogen. And this material contains both carbohydrates and water in a gel fashion. When you go on a diet where you take in fewer calories, the body uses some of these carbohydrates that are stored in the muscle and the liver and uses them for energy to replace, carbohydrates that you may not be taking by cutting the calories. When you do that, you're going to be losing water. So this also can cause a partial dehydration type situation where you're getting rid of a lot of water and your weight is dropping. And because of the sudden change in weight and the loss of water, once again, you could have a blood pressure that's on the low side, and you could pass out or just feel dizzy, at least when you stand up. Now, salt will help this. So people who are sweating a lot sometimes will take salt tablets to maintain their blood pressure. Of course, if you're on something that causes your blood pressure to be low, sometimes it's a good idea to hold off on that medication. One of the medications that is another one that can cause this are any of the diuretics. So if somebody's on a diuretic for their blood pressure, and it's a hot day, you're getting dehydrated, and that dehydration plus the effect of the diuretic means your blood pressure is going to be on the low side and you're going to get dizzy. So I used to tell my patients that if they were on a diuretic medication, that they had to make sure that they drank a lot of water to keep themselves well hydrated. And if they notice dizziness, that they should hold off on the water pill for a day or so to make sure that the blood pressure came back up. Okay, so this is the mechanism and some of the things that cause it. Like I said, treatment is basically hydration, some electrolytes, and sometimes you might even have to hold off on some medications that are lowering the blood pressure. Okay, take care, and